Good afternoon. It's now 3 p.m. local time here in Hanoi, and you are tuning in to the latest English news updates brought to you by VTV International. I'm Minh Chang, and here comes the headlines. Norwegian Prime Minister makes official visit to Vietnam. Border guards provide healthcare services in Quảng Trị province. And another one, Russian journalist features 1945 Vietnam. Today, April 17, Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg began her official visit to Vietnam at the invitation of Prime Minister Nguyễn Tấn Dũng. In the morning, the two prime ministers had a meeting after the official reception.
The visit of Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg is expected to boost bilateral relations between the two countries. This is the second visit of Norwegian leaders to Vietnam since 1996. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Erna Solberg visited Vietnam as the co-chairwoman of the Millennium Development Goals Advocacy Group. At the meeting, the two prime ministers discussed measures to step up bilateral cooperation across fields of politics, economics, culture, and social affairs. Prime Minister Dũng affirmed that Norway is an important partner of Vietnam in the Nordic region. It is expected that the visit of Norwegian Prime Minister would enhance the diplomatic ties between the two nations in the future.
We've agreed to develop the bilateral relations across all levels. We will celebrate the 40th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the two countries in 2016. The two governments will create favorable conditions for businesses to connect and kickstart investment. We will sign an agreement in an aviation cooperation between Vietnam and Norway. The two countries will cooperate in many sectors such as education, defense, investment, and culture.
In the afternoon session, the Norwegian Prime Minister is scheduled to meet other Vietnamese leaders to discuss further the Millennium Development Goals and sustainable development.
For this occasion, our reporter Dai Tang held an interview with the Norwegian Prime Minister, who shared her opinions and assessment of the two countries' cooperation. More to follow.
Thank you for taking the time with us today. First of all, could you give some assessments on the relationship between Vietnam and Norway in recent years? And does Norway have any specific plan to promote the two countries' relations?
I think we have a very good relationship between Norway and Vietnam. We have that on business, on trade, and we have that through partnering in promoting education, promoting social development. At the same time as, of course, investments, jobs, and job creation is important. Vietnam and Norway has quite a lot of things in common. Fisheries are important for both of our countries. So it's we have a work together on this. The maritime sector is important, and of course the energy.
Bilateral trade turnover between Vietnam and Norway maintains at more than $300 million in 2014. So what are the future plans that the two sides are pursuing to improve this figure?
My expectation is to get even closer ties and to learn more about Vietnam. It's important that political leaders meet each other and can discuss. It's also important that that is a good framework for international cooperation and for trade. And I think the trade figures will increase. Norway has quite a large group of Vietnamese who live in Norway, who have a lot of contacts back to their home country. So we have different levels of contact on the government level, people-to-people level, but also the possibility of increasing trade and investment from businesses.
Could you give some assessments on Vietnam's achievements in achieving United Nations Millennium Development Goals, and how can Norway support Vietnam in this field?
I always believe that it's the country themselves that have to deal with the big issues like education, environment. It's very important with the political connection, but sometimes it's interesting to have cooperation and partnership with other countries to learn how they are dealing with it. And I'm here both as a Prime Minister of Norway, but also as an advocate for the Millennium Goals and achievement that Vietnam have done on the Millennium Goals, which is quite remarkable. The figures are very good. Vietnam has done great leaps, not just on the economic side, but also on the social side, both to fight poverty, to make sure that more people are going through the educational system, learning more, and also in the health areas. But there is always more jobs to do, and it's not evenly distributed throughout of Vietnam. So probably I'm anxious to hear how are the government strategies on this, because as an advocate for the Millennium Development Goal, I'm trying to push other governments to achieve even more.
Once again, thank you very much for the interview.
Moving on now to other news. Chinese Minister of Public Security Guo Shenkun is on a working visit to Vietnam from April 16 to 17 at the invitation of Public Security Minister General Trần Đại Quang. Now, during their talks on April 16, the two ministers said the visit was a milestone in their bilateral cooperation. The two leaders signed a plan to implement the Memorandum of Understanding from the fourth ministerial meeting on preventing and combating crime. The document specifies that both countries will continually share information in this endeavor to ensure security in each country, foil sabotage scheme by hostile reactionary forces and criminals, and guarantee safety for their citizens, leaders, and bilateral diplomatic activities. On constructions and upgrade activities by foreign countries on islands and reef in the Paracel and Spratly archipelagos without the Vietnam government's permission are illegal and invalid. This announcement was made by Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lê Hải Bình at a regular press briefing in Hanoi on August 16.
On April the 9th, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying announced that China has expanded reefs in the Spratly archipelagos. Answering questions from reporters about Vietnam's reaction to that declaration, Vietnamese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lê Hải Bình said that Vietnam has repeatedly made its position clear to China on this issue, including at senior levels. He emphasized that Vietnam has sufficient legal basis and historical evidence validating its sovereignty over the Paracel and Spratly archipelagos.
Vietnam resolutely opposes these actions and asks the concerned parties to fully implement the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the East Sea, or DOC, as a practical contribution to maintaining peace and stability in the East Sea.
Also at the press conference, the Vietnamese Foreign Ministry spokesperson also provided information pertaining to the protection of the Vietnamese laborers working in foreign countries. Regarding the Vietnam Airlines pilot and chief flight attendant who were arrested in the Republic of Korea for gold smuggling, Bình said that the Vietnamese Foreign Ministry is coordinating with related agencies and directing the Vietnamese Embassy to Korea to work with Korean agencies to resolve this issue. On April 12th, the Indonesian Ministry's Marine Resources and Fisheries Surveillance Directorate General caught and detained a vessel flying under a Vietnamese flag, which had no legitimate documents and was illegally fishing in Indonesian waters. Regarding this issue, Lê Hải Bình said,
The Vietnamese embassy in Indonesia is promptly working with the Indonesian officials to ascertain if this ship is Vietnamese or not. If it is a Vietnamese ship, the embassy will implement the necessary measures to protect the Vietnamese citizens to ensure their lives and assets in accordance with international and Indonesian laws.
Also on April 12th, a Vietnamese citizen was arrested by Ukraine officials at the airport as he was carrying a watch which had a level of radioactivity 6,000 times higher than normal levels. Lê Hải Bình affirmed that currently the Vietnamese embassy to Ukraine is working with officials there to clarify this issue.
Administrative reform in custom procedures will be further boosted, according to the latest decision of the Prime Minister. Accordingly, all administrative documents will be screened to be submitted for adjustment, and those that are no longer necessary will be eliminated. The Prime Minister stressed that ministries and agencies will have to work simultaneously, particularly the leaders of these offices, to solve any arising problems during the reform process. Problems that cannot be solved will be directly reported to the Prime Minister's office. According to the state leader's statement, these efforts are hoped to ensure a healthy and strong business environment in line with international regulations and laws and under state management. National Assembly deputies concluded a two-day meeting body. Under the chairmanship of National Assembly Chairman Nguyen Sinh Hung, the revised law on state budget were carefully studied by delegates to ensure the effective and transparent use of state budget. Issues concerning state budget management and public spending were raised by delegates, besides local debts which are not reported to the National Assembly. Recommendations included regulations on state budget spending to avoid debts at local levels, as well as clear guidelines on budget uses. The central city of Da Nang maintained its top position in the 2014 Provincial Competitiveness Index, or PCI, rankings. This announcement was made during a ceremony to launch the 2014 PCI held by Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or VCCI, on April 16. This year's event marked the 10th PCI in Vietnam, which was jointly held by VCCI and the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID.
The CPI 2014 report reflects the opinions of nearly 10,000 private and 1,500 FDI companies in Vietnam. This year saw Ho Chi Minh City make the list of top 5 localities for the first time. Meanwhile, Da Nang City topped the PCI table for the second year running. One of the chief factors behind this achievement was the implementation of the Da Nang Business Year in 2014.
Da Nang's authorities always care about businesses. This is shown in our determination to boost administrative reforms. Also, civil servants in Da Nang are well trained. We have significantly changed the working attitudes, and we always welcome investors.
Meanwhile, the northern province of Lao Cai made the most remarkable progress, stepping up 14 places in the rankings to third place. Lao Cai also scored the highest in terms of transparency.
To reduce administrative procedure time, payoffs, and to promote market entry, we had to clarify our policies and procedures. So, in addition to reforms in management, Lao Cai province also extensively computerized its business registration steps and customs system. We also implemented an online tax payment project.
Generally, the capacity of economic management in most cities and provinces has seen positive progress, with average PCI rising from 57.81 in 2013 to 58.58 in 2014. The VCCI also revealed that differences in economic management between the top and bottom groups had narrowed in recent years.
Provinces with the lowest ranks have changed quickly, while provinces in the top brackets seem to reform slower. Also, initiatives to reform the top provinces have declined in number compared to previous years.
The 2014 PCI report shed fresh light on the quality of human resources and the relations between employees and businesses in Vietnam. Notably, in 2014, the quality of vocational training worsened, while enterprises spending on training employees increased. PCI 2014 marked the 10th year of cooperation between VCCI and USAID in compiling the PCI report.
98.42% of landowners in Thừa Thiên Huế province are now certified, compared to 60.7% in July 2013. This is thanks to local authorities' efforts to reform the legal process and the effective use of technology. The following report will take a closer look.
For a business like IMG Huế, time is a great expense. However, the fast-track legal process has greatly reduced the time needed for paperwork for the investor of An Kieu City, a new urban complex in Thừa Thiên Huế.
Our real estate documents have been sought very quickly and conveniently. Responses to our queries have been fast too.
Thừa Thiên Huế province had issued nearly 610,000 certificates for a total area of over 336,000 hectares to landowners as of March 30th this year. Not only has this been made possible by the reduced legal process, but also transparent processing. More importantly, this process has been made consistent throughout all levels and agencies through the use of digital technology.
We've used the Geographic Information System (PUE) to keep track of the real estate to be granted land ownership certificates. Previously, we only granted this certificate if all parties were present. Under the simplified process, we can now grant a certificate directly to the land user as a representative of all inheritors.
98.42% of landowners in Hue can now comfortably use their property, and data is constantly updated onto Thiên Huế Real Estate Information System. This clearly reflects the determinations of authorities there to professionalize, innovate, and ensure consistencies for the best interests of the people.
And now, before we move on with other news, let's take a look at the foreign exchange rates. Coming up next in the latter half of our bulletin, border guards provide healthcare services in Quảng province. And later on, war veterans recall memories of Camp David. Stay tuned. You're watching VTV News live from Hanoi. Search and rescue efforts are underway after 2 Su-22 and 4 fighter jets went missing during a training exercise yesterday afternoon. Under the command of the Ministry of Defense, Army forces, Coast Guard, fishery inspectors, as well as fishermen are circling the area where the planes are thought to have crashed. So far, only 3 subsidiary oil tanks have been found, but the pilots and their planes are still missing. We will update you on the progress of the search in our next bulletin. Moving on now with other news, an international conference on critical care was held on Thursday at Da Nang in the collaboration with the American Association of Critical Care Nurses. More than 600 Vietnamese and foreign participants attended the conference and discussed 17 topics related to critical care. About 70% of reports given at the conference were addressed by American critical care experts. Discussion focused on the treatment of severe sepsis and septic shock, liver failure, acute strokes, and brain hemorrhages. Prior to this conference, a 3-day training course was held by top American doctors in critical care at Bạch Mai Hospital in Hanoi and several hospitals in Da Nang City. The border guards in Quảng province have been helping local people, especially in rural communes, and army medics for many years. The medics also provide free consultations and treatment to Laotians in border area. Let's find out more about what they are doing for locals in the following report.
The border guards in Quảng province have been providing local people with health services for years. Ho Văn Thành is one of the many veterans in the province who have received treatment.
I am very grateful for what the border guards have done for the people living in remote areas and veterans like me.
In rural areas where locals cannot reach health clinics, the border guards visit their houses to provide consultations and treatment. The border guards have provided healthcare services to nearly 20,000 people in the province. 600 patients have been treated for severe malaria, acute diarrhea, food poisoning, and everyday accidents. The force also works with the Red Cross and Quảng Province Department of Health to provide free healthcare services to more than 2,000 people living near the border.
For the past 2 years, the border guards have visited rural areas in the province to raise awareness among locals about food hygiene and environmental issues. As a result, local residents' health has improved. This year, we will work harder to strengthen the link between the folks and local people. We will also improve the infrastructure at health clinics, send qualified medical officials to rural areas, and cooperate with veterans to improve healthcare services.
The Border Guard Force has built 11 clinics in the border region between Vietnam and Laos. These clinics have helped improve the health of people in Quảng Trị province and the neighboring country of Laos.
Over the past 2 years, about 60,000 islanders have benefited from a project to develop health services on the country's islands. The outcome of this project, which will continue until 2020, was reviewed on Thursday by the National Steering Committee for Sea and Island Healthcare and representatives from the authorities of 28 coastal provinces. According to the project's report, the authorities have made improvements in healthcare services, preferential health insurance policies, and the medical infrastructure. In addition, the conventional healthcare sector and the military medical force have cooperated to provide emergency care to more than 2,800 people. However, despite these achievements, many delegates have argued that the responsibility of investing in the healthcare service should be shared by a greater range of agencies. Ninh Thuận Province celebrated the 40th anniversary of its Liberation Day on Thursday, with several party central committees leaders attending the celebration ceremony. Addressing the event, Đinh Thế Huynh, Politburo member, secretary of the party central committee, and head of the Commission for Popularization and Education, praised the efforts of those who fought for the liberation of the province. He added that the patriotism of the past was a great example for the authorities in Ninh Thuận, which should inspire them to develop the province into a prosperous and stable area in terms of politics and social security. Since its liberation 40 years ago, Ninh Thuận has indeed made great strides forward, with the province budget reaching $83.3 million in 2015, a 51-fold increase compared to 1992. The province's average annual growth rate is 8.8%, while the industry and service sectors here are going from strength to strength. On this occasion, Ninh Thuận Province was granted the third-class Independence Medal for its achievement. Moving on with other news, in 1973, after the Paris Peace Accords was signed, a group of war veterans from then the North Vietnam was sent to become part of a joint military group, including forces of the Provisional Revolutionary Government of the Republic of South Vietnam and the Democratic Republic of Vietnam in Camp David's in Tân Sơn Nhất Airport, southern Vietnam. The group stayed in Camp David's for 823 days and made great contributions to the implementation of the Paris Accords in Vietnam. The following story tells the memories of these war veterans.
This is the U.S. military's transport aircraft C-130 that carried the then Lieutenant General Trần Văn Cha from South Vietnam to Hanoi. At that time, Cha was the head of the joint military group to Camp Davis in Saigon. In 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed with the aims of establishing peace in Vietnam. A joint committee was founded in Camp Davis to implement the accords. From then on, soldiers of North Vietnam could be sent at Tân Sơn Nhất Airport.
We had to stay at Camp Davis for 823 days. Our delegation became a unit stationed in the middle of South Vietnam, and we struggled politically and diplomatically. Our delegation was held by General Bong Nguyên Giáp. We also fought through the media. We tried to highlight the Southern regime's violations of the Paris Accords.
According to Nguyễn Như Kim, soldiers from the North stations at Camp Davis at that time managed to make use of the other side's weaknesses. and that is how they avoided becoming hostages in Saigon.
At first, our working sessions with the other delegations were not easy. Later, we suggested that we would return American pilots if the U.S. and the Southern regime showed their goodwill. That's why the U.S. urged the Southern regime to strictly observe the accords. According to the Paris Accords, troops would retreat and prisoners of war would be returned. There were 554 American soldiers arrested. Retrieving these soldiers was a big concern for the U.S., so it did not dare to violate the accords.
Then Lieutenant General Chen Wen-cha also made a similar deal with the head of the U.S. delegation. Cha said that he had information about an American pilot imprisoned in Chao-Ving province, but he would only reveal the information if he was allowed to fly to Hanoi on a U.S. aircraft. The U.S. delegates accepted the deal, and that was the reasons why a military officer from North Vietnam was able to travel to Hanoi on a U.S. aircraft during wartime.
The Vietnam Cinema Department has announced a film series to commemorate the 40th anniversary of Southern Liberation and National Reunification Day, as well as other important national anniversaries in 2015. Among the films to be screened nationwide are newly released funded by the state budget, which is Path Through the Forest, Ultimate Victory, a documentary, Children of the Village, and Tho Chin in Thailand. From April 20th to May 12th, Film Weeks will be held in Hanoi, Đắk Lắk, Ho Chi Minh City, and Nghệ An, where audiences, including war veterans, will be able to watch famous movies and have a chance to meet and talk with the film crews. 2015 will mark the 70th anniversary of Vietnam's independence and the 70th anniversary of Russia's Victory Day, or V-Day. This coincidence has brought Russian journalist Sergei Brylev to Vietnam for a historical documentary about Vietnam in 1945. This is part of his series about Russia and the Allies in the year of victory against the Nazis. More in the following report.
The Hanoi Opera House, the historical site that witnessed Vietnam's first National Assembly meeting, was also Sergei's first destination. At the Vietnam National Museum of History, he found valuable artifacts from the August Revolution and Ho Chi Minh's Declaration of Independence. The Russian journalist sees this as important material to reenact the courageous uprising of the Vietnamese people against the Empire of Japan in 1945.
For Vietnam and Russia, World War II was not just a war for idealism and territory. It was the fight for our cultural survival, in which both our peoples strived. This was the foundation for our bond. 1945 was also an opportunity for national liberation for many other peoples, and Vietnam was historically the first to seize it.
To find some help, Sergei also sought out Ho Anh Dũng, one of Ho Chi Minh's students who was sent to the Soviet Union for training in 1954. He also met renowned Vietnamese journalist Lại Văn Sâm, who has produced TV programs on the Russia-Vietnam friendships, such as The Song of Victory.
Dũng and Sâm have helped me understand better than ever the special bond between the Russian and Vietnamese people. This is not just theoretical but very genuine within the Vietnamese people we met, who speak Russian and cherish our cultural friendship.
2015 also marked the 65th anniversary of Vietnam-Russia's diplomatic relations. It is the year for both peoples to celebrate shoulder to shoulder the 65 years of close friendship between Vietnam and Russia, and look forward to the future.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. And that concludes our news updates for this afternoon. Thank you very much for tuning in. For now, goodbye from Hanoi.